Common sense buffs. It's been a long time. I shouldn't have left you without some dope content to react to. We are back once again on live on this channel. Your favorite content creator. Hopefully over time I'll be in your top five at least. Covering the Colorado Buffaloes in the Coach Prime era. Man, listen, guys, it took me a couple of days to even be ready to sit down and have this conversation with you about the Colorado Georgia Tech game, but I'm here. Hopefully, all of you are having a lovely Labor Day weekend. Because of you, this channel is growing. YouTube is showing me some love on the back end of the analytics. It's letting me know that the community is really enjoying the content. I think we just went over 2,000 watch hours for the year. And you guys are growing in terms of subscribers. You're sharing the content. So I really, really appreciate that. Because of that, we're going to continue to do this as long as it's adding value to you and it's adding perspective to this overall conversation of all of the fans and the detractors of the Colorado Buffalo. So I think in the title of this video is Missed Opportunity. I think that Colorado versus Georgia Tech game was really a big missed opportunity. And Prime really harps on this, right? He talks all the time to his players about opportunities and not to miss your opportunity and how to be prepared for your opportunity. I think in this game, Colorado really missed an opportunity. And that's what I think is most difficult for me. It's not necessarily that they lost, but that they had everything working in their favor to win, and somehow they found a way to lose. So we're going to be breaking that down today. But I'm not a doom and gloom guy, right? The thing about opportunities is even if you miss one, for example, I think this is a game that Prime wants to have back. I think a lot of players and coaches on the Colorado Buffaloes would love to have this game back, but you can't, right? And so, like he said, you got to flush it, you got to move forward. But we're definitely going to talk about the things that happened that went well in this game, and some of the things that I have as observations. This is not an absolute on the game. These are just my takeaways from the game. All right. So, as you guys come on in here, I see you guys are coming in here. This is meant to be a conversation. This is a live show, so I am keeping my eye on the chat. Go ahead and throw a message in there where you're from, what your key takeaways are, and maybe some things that you might disagree with me on or agree with me on in the chat or in the comments if you're watching this on replay. All right, now number one for me is that Georgia Tech is a solid opponent. Georgia Tech is not a slouch team. I don't believe anybody expected, even though there were some people in some of the circles that I follow, like Dino Up the Skull and TLP Sports Club, who thought this was going to be a blowout. Right, Colorado was just going to come out and really put a whooping on Georgia Tech. But what you have to respect about Georgia Tech is that they're a solid opponent, and they consistently give ranked teams a hard time. So I'm not surprised whatsoever that Georgia Tech came in and they were prepared, they were well coached, and from all intents and purposes, they were great sportsmen, right? I didn't see any issues during the game where I was like, "Oh, that was egregious." Oh, you try to hurt a player. If they were talking, you couldn't really tell. I felt like this was really a game against a opponent who came in, and both teams were talking with their play on the field. So, big shout out to Georgia Tech. Nothing that I'm saying here about I feel like Colorado missed an opportunity is really a knock on Georgia Tech or Georgia Tech fans. That is certainly not my intention. I think they played a great game. Now, what we're going to do is the good and not so good. It's going to be a mix of the two as I go through some of these topics. Now, number one, I got to talk about because it's being talked about a lot. It's about clock management and decision making, strategic decision making, or football decisions throughout the game by and it naturally only falls on Coach Prime, right? I'm not sure who on the team is necessarily in charge of some of these decisions, whether it's Coach Prime and the OC or just the OC or some other person on the staff. But I thought that throughout the game, there were certain points in the game where some coaching decisions were made that were a bit of a head scratcher. Think one of them was early in the game after a turnover. I think they had, and this was a caused turnover by the defense, right? Rob Livingston called the play, was perfectly executed. Arden Walker came off the edge, took the running back. Martavius French took the quarterback, caused a I think it was French, or maybe it was Hughes, and then French fell on it. Or it might have been the other way around. I'm trying to remember it now. Yeah, I think Arden Walker took the running back, and then Hughes had the quarterback. He fumbled it, and then Hughes recovered it. On the subsequent drive, right? I felt like, and I believe this was the no, I'm sorry, this was the drive when they had the high snap on the fumble. So I think we went down and scored on that first drive, right after that initial fumble. That was the first fumble. On the second fumble where they had the high snap, on that drive, I think we were like 4th and 1. And you can see, and I love nowadays that they have the little analytics things that pops up on the screen, right, when you're watching the game and tells you what the analytics say, right? And football is more than just instinct nowadays. There's a lot of data involved. And the analytics were saying, go for it. And I thought that was a pretty critical moment. So, one of the things I need to really understand as these decisions are made, is it up to a person? Is it a mix of data and analytics, or who ultimately on the Colorado Buffaloes decided that they were going to punt in that situation? Right. There was another fourth down, 4th and short in the first half where I believe they punted the ball away as well. So questionable decisions there on fourth down by the Colorado Buffaloes and Coach Prime. The other thing that kind of baffled me was in the second half, there was a 4th and short, and we decided that we were going to just run out the clock, delay a game, and then choose to punt. I thought that was weird as well, especially at that point in the game. I don't know if we had decided at that point we were gonna play not to lose, or we were just going to play this game safe. But given that the defense was not really stopping Georgia Tech, I don't think it really made a difference if you were forcing them to drive 90 yards or forcing them to drive 60 yards. At that point in the game, the offense needed to continue to stay on the field and run down the clock, and I think they had an opportunity to do that. So I think Coach Prime really has to make a decision here as to whether or not he's going to be the person who's making these strategic decisions. And the most egregious, before I skip over this, was during that 1 minute drill where they left the game and lost the game with two timeouts still to call, especially with the play calling during that drill. So I think that's definitely a huge area of improvement. It's not something new. It's not something that just popped up in this Georgia Tech game. This is something that Prime has been knocked for since last season. There were a couple games there where poor clock management, especially in those close games, could have been blamed as the reason why Colorado lost those games last year. And so Coach Prime really, really, really needs to take a long, hard look in the mirror. I mean, who am I to tell him what to do or how to run his team? I think, but nobody is above somebody else's perspective. And I think this is the perspective of a lot of people. Some people are going to the extreme, which is saying that he cannot coach, right? I think that's one extreme. The other part that the position I'm really taking is you have to make a decision on, hey, is it going to be me? Is it going to be my OC? Is it going to be somebody else on my staff? And are these decisions that they're going to be making solely just by instinct or experience, or are they going to be including data and analytics in these conversations or in these decisions? So that's one thing I think that was not so good, and that could have been much better. What I was very impressed with, though, was the improvements in the offensive line. I think this is probably the best offensive line that Coach Prom has had. I mean, you could have said the same thing about that offensive line against TCU, maybe because they won that game, right? That offensive line did what they needed to do to win that game in that season opener. But they kept Caden Salter clean. I don't think he was sacked this game, and they really ran the ball well, right? And we know Jordan Seaton is absolutely outstanding. I saw him out there just pancaking people. And when he's out there on the field, he's an impact player, right? He's vocal. He's more vocal this season. You can tell that he's a leader on that line. You can tell he's a leader on that team. Now, what I would love to see in terms of who's leading that team, I'm going to get to. But from his position, right, who he is as the starting left tackle, I think he's really assuming that leadership role. So I think Seaton had a outstanding game. I know if you're looking at PFF, which for me, I mean, again, analytics, yeah, you got to look at the data as well. But when you aggregate the line, right, they said some people have better performances than others, etc., which they probably did. But from the eyeball test, as an entire unit, I thought that offensive line really played well together. And it's only their first game together. And that bodes very, very well for this offense. I think as this line continues to play together, they're going to really be a line to contend with. Now, what I would have loved to see is that they could get more push. They were certainly opening lanes, right? But I don't think they were really pushing people down the field, which is what I want to see from an offensive line that's extremely dominant. Not only are you opening running lanes, but you're moving the opponent's defensive line back 2 to 3 yards. So I really love what I saw from the offensive line. So I got to take my hat off to the recruiting staff, bringing in Zy Chrysler, McGill, Xavier Hill, Kareem Harding is much improved as well, who we saw in this game as well. So that whole committee. So Gunnar White, in terms of coach prime and decision making, great hire there. But then to bring in the backup of Andre Gerard, and I can't think of the other coach's name, and that coaching by committee, I think we have a pretty good offensive line that this team can rely on to keep the quarterback clean and have a run game. So that was good. Now the other not so good, Pat Shermer's play calling. My goodness, man. When your eyes tell you something, believe it, right? And I think there's this cliche saying that says, "Don't believe your lying eyes. Believe what I'm telling you." Well, my eyes weren't lying last season, and they certainly were not lying to me on Friday night. Pat Shermer's play calling is questionable at best. And you could start from the way he used Caden Salter. I thought it was pure malpractice the way that he used Caden Salter on Friday. And it probably also started from the fact that he decided to call the game from the booth. Now, I don't know. Some people just feel more comfortable up there in the booth. But I thought for a quarterback who was starting his biggest game of the season, I think he needed his quarterback coach and offensive coordinator down on the sideline to talk to him. You could tell that there, at points in the game, he was nervous, which is natural. I mean, if you're on a big stage, we all get nervous. It's not like I'm some kind of person who could play in front of 60,000 people and not be go into it nervous, but you really need your coach to kind of talk you down, calm you down, let you know everything is going to be okay, and look you in your eyes, right? To only have your coach's voice in your head on a headset in a big game like that, I thought that was not a good decision to be up in the booth with a quarterback who was starting on a stage like that for the first time. No design runs. I thought that's one of the reasons why K Salt was recruited to play at Colorado, right? He really had the legs, and he's a guy that can hurt teams with his legs. And so, why wasn't he in quarterback draws or true option plays where he's kind of trying to get to the edge and make whoever the edge player, the contained player, make a decision whether they were going to take him or he could pitch it to the running back. So I think there was a lot of malpractice there, but I think K Salt could take some responsibility as well. There were many opportunities where Pat Shermer, either through his play calling or just the way the play evolved on the field, that K Salt had an opportunity to run the ball. He didn't take those opportunities. Instead, he decided to pass the ball to wide open running backs coming out of the field, and he could not hit them. And so I think, I can't put it all on him. Would have loved to see Pat Shermer. And you can't. Well, again, as the coach, you really have to find somebody has to take the ultimate responsibility, right? And I think through play calling or maybe just being down on the field to talk him through some of his decision making may have helped. So K Salt, I'm not ready to say, oh, it's all over with. Put Juju in the game. I think we're close to that point. Um, if he doesn't really take what this game gave him in terms of film, in terms of the outcome, in terms of the feedback that he's obviously going to get not only from the fans but from the coaches, and make a change. So K Salt, man, I'm rooting for you. I know you got it, right? I know you got it. This game was nowhere near some kind of disaster where you can say, oh, okay, bench this guy. This guy can't play football or anything like that. Georgia Tech is a good game. Colorado played them to a 27-20 game, and we played I mean, from Colorado's fans' expectations, probably from the coaches' expectations as well, we did not play a good game, and we still played Georgia Tech to a 20-27 game, and they had to win that game late, right? They really had to win that game late, where we still had a minute on the clock where we could have done something with some better play calling. No idea why Pat Shermer or maybe even the running backs coach Marshall Falk may have gone away from Michael Welsh early in the game. I think he came out. He had the hot hand. He had the hot hand throughout the game. Even though I was very impressed with Simeon Price, I would have loved to see more Michael Welsh. I think he certainly needs to be a featured guy in this offense, right? As much as they were talking about Haynes King and Jamal Haynes, I think a similar narrative can be created for Kay Salt and Michael Welsh. I think teams really need to be on the lookout for Michael Welsh. And if we truly use him like we should, Michael Welsh could be 1,000 yard back, right? Or it's certainly over 800 yards in a season. I think if they had fed him like he should have been fed in this game, he would have probably had over 100 yards rushing. So I'm very high on Michael Welsh. I have another video on this channel talking about why Michael Welsh can be a 1,000 yard rusher. And I'm glad, sometimes as a content creator, you do this content and it's kind of you're shooting in the dark, right? You're hoping that your prediction really hits. But I think in the case of Michael Welsh, my prediction that he has a potential 1,000 yard rushing season in his future is going to come true. Because if that happens, Colorado is certainly going to the Big 12 championship. Now, another malpractice on the part of Pat Shermer was his misuse of his weapons on the outside. Now, I think the starting receivers in this game were Amarion Miller, Draylon Miller, and Sincere Brown, if I remember correctly. I know Quentin Gibson got some touches. I think JoJo Williams got a catch, but nowhere near what I thought was going to happen in the past game with the use of all those weapons on the outside. Georgia Tech is not the best secondary I think they're going to face, but from the way that the game turned out and the number of targets that those wide receivers had, you would think they were playing against, I don't know, Clemson's corners and safeties or Florida State's secondary or something like that. So I think Pat Shermer really did a disservice. And I thought I saw somewhere in the comments that Jay Phil would need to do some emotional management in that wide receiver room. I'm sure a lot of those kids were thinking like, wait a minute, why am I here at Colorado again? I mean, I'm Sincere Brown. I'm a 1,000 yard receiver. JoJo Williams, freshman of the year, had over 500 yards receiving in like just a couple games last season. Omarion Miller, we know what he can do when quarterbacks get him the ball. And Draylon Miller, of course, is outstanding. Then you add a Quentin Gibson, you add an Isaiah Harge, and you still can't get them the ball. That's absolute malpractice. And then when you got wide open passes that are getting missed by your quarterback, you're not going to win too many games like that, especially on third down as well. The 5 minute drill, right? And this is where the defense, a lot of people are not impressed with our defense. Georgia Tech had over 300 rushing yards, and it seemed like our defense could not stop the run. But late in the second in the fourth quarter, our defense got a very important stop. The score is 2020. Defense gets the ball, I think a 3 and out, give the ball to the offense. Now the offense had no rhythm at this point, right? So even I was kind of praying that they would do something here, but they didn't have the momentum. They hadn't shown me anything that was going to prove to me that they would actually do something with that ball. And of course, I think this is where they turned the ball over, another 3 and out. Listen, I've played on football teams where the defense is outstanding, and every chance you give the offense, they don't do anything with it. It grates on you after a while. It's demoralizing as a defense that we're putting in all this work, we're turning over the ball on downs, and then you guys just turn around and give it right back to the offense. We work very hard to get off the field. Now we got to put our helmets on and go back out there. So again, Pat Shermer's play calling during that 5 minute at that 5 minute point when the game was 2020 essentially 0-0. How can you not use your weapons on the outside? Run the clock down, utilize your tight end, and even if you have to kick a field goal to win the game, right? You could still get it done in that 5 minute period. But it just seemed like there was no game plan for any scenarios like that. I was absolutely disappointed with what I saw on that drive. And then last but not least, probably the worst. I mean, but the game technically was over. Again, at 5 minutes, if you have no rhythm, you're not exactly going to turn it on in a minute and 6 seconds. Throwing the ball behind the line of scrimmage, not calling a timeout. Caden Salter scrambling, and not being aware that if he got the first down and just went down or called his team up and spiked the ball, he could have stopped. All those things, right? Where's like the whole before you go out there, if this happens conversation that you need to have with your quarterback when they're orchestrating a 1 minute drill trying to win the game. But I think absolutely a lot of malpractice by Pat Shermer. And maybe this might be a little bit of conspiracy theory, but at some point during the game, I think there was a flash to the booth, and it looked like there might have been a little bit of a disagreement on some of those plays that were being called by Pat Shermer, who was seated, and another coach who looked a little bit agitated standing, who I suspect was Brett Bartoloni. But maybe that's me being a conspiracy theorist. If you guys are an investigators out there, you have that game recorded or you can rewatch it. Late in the game, I think it was like that one, it was like either that 1 minute drive or that 5 minute drive where you could obviously see there was some agitation in the booth around play calling. If you find it, send it to me. I will definitely shout you out for that. All right. Another thing that I liked was the defense and how they played early in that game. They caused one fumble, of course, the interception, and then the 12th man, right, Folsom Field, created, I think, that high snap on the center because it was really loud in there, and they were getting penalized as well, jumping off sides early in the game. So it's great to have that home field where it's very, very hard to play when the crowd is in the game. And I loved how the defense played early, creating those turnovers. Players I was impressed with. Brandon Davis Swain got the start, so redshirt freshman, I believe, redshirt freshman Brandon Davis Swain, former Michigan Defensive Player of the Year, took the red shirt last year, moved from edge rusher to defensive tackle. I think that kid has a very, very bright future. He seemed to be developing very well under Warren Sapp's tutelage, and I think he's probably gonna be a contender for newcomer of the year in the Big 12. Trust me on that. I might do a video on Brandon Davis Swain after this game. French played really well as well early on. You can see that he's a very talented linebacker. Um, but where the defense kind of, I think, really suffered and where Georgia Tech really took advantage of them are in two areas, or three areas actually. One, their ability to keep contained. I thought the defensive ends did not do a really good job of keeping contained, and I think it was particularly true when Keaton Wade was in the game, where Georgia Tech was just really picking on him because they knew they had Arden Walker on the other side, or maybe Quincy Wiggins, who I think had a good first showing. I think he's still raw. I think he has a lot of development to do. But in terms of true run stopping defensive ends, I think if Quincy Wiggins can develop into that consistent player on the edge, if you're playing against a heavy run team, I think Quincy Wiggins on one edge and Arden Walker on the other is the solution, in my personal opinion, for stopping the run for Colorado. And then rotational pieces in passing downs, I think that's where you're going to have a Keaton Wade or a Sam Okunlola really shine. So I did see some good things there, but we did not do a good job of keeping contained. The other thing is leadership from the linebacker position. When you're playing a team that loves to do a lot of misdirection and likes to get the defense confused, you really need a linebacker who's able to get people in the right positions. I don't know if Hughes was supposed to be that person or French who was supposed to get them lined up, who was supposed to be calling out the plays, who was supposed to be reminding people of their assignments. I don't know if they really have that at the a linebacker position. And I guess I understand rotating linebackers, but I really didn't see much of that last year. I think they had their two guys last year. It was Hill Green and it was Lavonta Bentley, and they just played linebacker, right? And I mean, defensive line, I understand defensive line rotation. You're trying to keep those guys fresh. You're trying to wear down the offensive line, but rotating linebackers, I really haven't seen much of it. Maybe I'm just naive. So in the chat, if you know a team that effectively rotates linebackers, please put it in the chat. But I thought that was odd, right? If you have your linebacking core and you trust them, you really need to see leadership from that linebacking core that studied a lot of film and are able to get their guys lined up and basically call out what the offense wants to do. I didn't really see that, but Hughes had a good game, solid game in terms of tackling. French also was very impressive. I think over time, playing in Rob Livingston's defense, they're going to get better together. Last but not least, on a Coach Prime team, I'm really disappointed in this secondary. There was rotation in the secondary, which is so weird to me. Guys, if you see another team rotating members of their secondary as much as we did, please let me know in the chat. We need to find a solution for cornerback two. I mean, the cornerback two by committee between RJ Johnson and Tion Parks did not work in that game. And you can clearly see these guys are not as confident as you would like to see a starting quarterback be, because they were holding, I mean, like obvious pass interference that states or that demonstrates I do not have faith in my technique. When you grab a guy as a corner and you're like, you literally have him, not like you position yourself and there's a little bit of jostling, right? You're in position, but you're so unsure of your technique that you have to grab the receiver where it's so obvious that the ref has to throw the flag. That's an issue with confidence in their technique. And it concerns me that you have Mathis and Prime as your secondary coaches, and you have corners and nickels and dime package players who are not confident in their technique. So, uh, Colorado, in order to be successful, needs to really find that cornerback too and just stick with them. Who I thought was going to be the leader based on their playing experience in that secondary was Tafik Bayard, but he was a rotational piece in that game. Listen, if you got a secondary and a leader in the secondary, he's supposed to get your secondary lined up and he's supposed to be calling out those plays. I really didn't see that in the secondary, and I think it really hurt them. And the tackling in the secondary is terrible. And I don't know. Again, I'm an old school football player, right? You're the whole practice. You're not just trying to punch the ball out. Think what I see a lot on Well Off and Reach the People media videos is that they're encouraging all of their defensive players to try to create turnovers on every play. Punch the ball, punch. No, you just got to be a great tackler. And you can see a secondary that is so used to catching people, right? Or like just always going for the punch, that they don't know how to square people up and tackle in the open field. And that's why Georgia Tech was able to run all around them, run through them, juke them in the open field once they got to the second and third level. I mean, what are you guys doing? Can we get some old school tackling drills? Forget about punching the ball out, right? If you got a guy wrapped up, the second person can try to rip it out, but don't try to be the first guy. And the only thing you're trying to do is create turnovers. Just get the tackle. I mean, am I crazy? Let me know in the chat. I see some thumbs up. People are obviously agreeing with me, but I mean, we're horrible in tackling because we don't tackle in practice. We're always just trying to rip and strip and punch the ball out, and that's what gets rewarded in practice. And so when you get to the game, you guys got guys who can't tackle. It's obvious. All right, so this is my last point, and I'm gonna get out of here and go watch that Miami Notre Dame game. But I think we're very, very good in special teams, and I really like that. We won the field position battle, guys. We got a real punter in new mate. Prime calls him new mate so much I don't even know the man's name. But I think we have a really, really good punter. He had a couple of really impressive punts. And it's not just about punting the ball long, but it's about pinning the defense deep. I mean, the offense deep in their territory. You would have hoped that helped us, but Georgia Tech was again able to put together a bunch of long drives and get the ball down the field. But I think we're really, really good on special teams. So big shout out to Coach Pollock. He's taken the pieces that he's had and he's really utilizing them. So I love what I see in our punter. Our punter is going to put us in a position where everybody we play, if we punt the ball, is going to have a long field to drive. So I love to see that. Mata was Mata. He was automatic. He hit 2 field goals. Now, the one mistake that we made on special teams is that we almost had an extra point blocked. And they just let a guy run free off the edge. He almost blocked that, and that game could have been over then. And Georgia Tech could have just ran the clock out. So good job, Coach Pollock and the special teams. I also liked what I saw from Isaiah Harge in coverage, right? One of the big issues that we had on special teams was special teams coverage. And Isaiah Harge being on that punt team really came up big with a tackle where he tackled the guy down within the 5 yard line. And I think he also stopped the punt from going in the end zone, and they ended up on the 1 yard line and had to drive the full field. JR Boxing, my guy. Hey, JR Boxing, we need to do a show together, brother. Because I think, I really vibe with your opinion, your perspective. I appreciate you being here, tuning in on this live, even though it was kind of last minute. So I don't know how I get your information. I could link with Harry B, maybe get your email and we could get something set up. I would love to connect with you and do a show together if that is possible. So I loved Isaiah Harge on special teams. I think he's going to be a very, very good special teams player for us. And then Buck Buchanan kicking the ball out of the end zone, right? They didn't have any kick. Well, maybe they had one. I think the very first one at the start of the game, but kicking the ball out of the end zone so we don't even have to do kickoff coverage, I think was excellent. So all in all, what's my big takeaway from the game, guys? Oh, now all of y'all want to be in here. All right, well then maybe we can have a conversation for a little bit in the chat. I appreciate all of y'all joining. Thank you so much for coming in. I was just about to wrap, but you're here now. So JR Boxing, what were your key takeaways? Go ahead and let me know in the chat. I'd appreciate you. Got to take a quick drink, y'all. Got to hydrate. All right. So special teams was special. Buck Buchanan was special. Motto was special. Loved what I saw from New Mate and Isaiah Harge. All right. Key takeaways from the game. It's not over, guys. It's game one, and we lost to a good, well-coached Georgia Tech team. And I loved it. I mean, he had the walk-off touchdown, and he was very classy about it. But he was hurting too because he had taken a lot of hits. They leaned on Haynes King the whole game. Went to his sideline. They celebrated. They got off the field. They did their thing. So big shout outs to Georgia Tech. We need to figure out our situational uh, uh, decision making, right? How are we taking these fourth down decisions? Are we using analytics? Is there somebody on the team that's going to take these fourth down decisions? Is there somebody who is in the booth, right? Really making decisions around timeouts. Is it really going to be on prime? Are they going to do it by instinct? Are they going to combine data and analytics? I really want to see us solve this whole how we make decisions around situational footballs and using football and using timeouts. I'm really impressed by our improved offensive line. I think our run game is just getting started. I think it's going to continue to improve. And the longer that front five plays together, really front six, right? So Seaton, Hill, McGill, Chrysler, um, Johnson, and Harden, right? Really being that sixth man on the line. As long as those guys continue to play together and play well, we're going to have a formidable offensive line. I love that they kept K-Salt clean, and K-Salt had to use his feet sometimes. He's very elusive in the pocket. He's really hard to get sacked. Even when there was times where the offensive line got beat, he used his legs to make sure that he made those guys look good. But I love what I saw from the offensive line. Pat Shermer's play calling, again, needs to be improved tremendously, right? How he intends to use K-Salt is an issue that he has to address. We need to feature Michael Welsh, right? He needs to be a featured back. Of course, situationally, you're bringing in Trackhawk, you're bringing in Simeon Price, but Michael Welsh needs to be our featured back. We need to utilize our weapons on the outside, guys. It was complete malpractice that Omarion Miller only had one target. We didn't see much of JoJo Williams. We did not see anything from Sincere either. We did not see much from Hakeem Williams. It was also malpractice in our use of the tight end, guys. Zach Atkins, and this is one of the rare occasions in the game where I saw Pat. I kind of saw a glimpse of what it looks like when Pat Shermer schemes something. And I don't know if you guys feel like he's calling plays in isolation. I never really feel like Pat Shermer is calling a play to set up a play. All right. Let me know in the chat if Pat Shermer seems like a coach who is calling a play to set up a play. Perfect example of what I liked about some of the games that I saw today was things that I saw from, for example, from Florida State, or even things that we saw from the Georgia Tech offensive coordinator. They are calling plays to set up other plays. The one time where I saw that was where they were regularly motioning both the running back and the tight end. They'll start off to one side of the formation, they'll motion to the opposite side of the formation. There was a couple of times where he did that, and when Zach Atkins motioned and they snapped the ball, K-Salt rolled with Zach Atkins as a result of the motion and then flicked the pass to him, and Zach Atkins became the runner and he gained some yards. That is an example of an offensive coordinator using that motion, lulling the defense to sleep, and then utilizing the player who is usually a blocker and now putting them into a runner position. Those are the kinds of things we need to see from our offensive coordinator, not just a series of disjointed plays that don't seem to be part of a script of trying to get to a particular ending. JR Boxing says, I think Pat tried to get a setup play, but it didn't materialize later on in the game. Well, if it's onesies and twosies, right, JR Boxing, that's the whole point, right? Where it's so predictable when you make these personnel changes, it's not really a setup, right? You see Trackhawk in the game, oh, they're about to pass the ball out of the backfield. You see Micah, oh, they're about to run a power run, right? Even though Micah can catch the ball out of the backfield, and even though Trackhawk can run in between the tackles, you need to set people up. Okay. So let's say the defense is keying on Trackhawk coming out of the backfield to catch the pass. This is where maybe you run a quarterback draw or something with you trying to draw that linebacker out of the box by motioning Trackhawk out of the box, right? You got to put a body on him because he's a great pass catcher. Maybe that's when you utilize the quarterback run. I never saw him really scheming to get these plays off during the game. So you guys can correct me if you saw something different. We could have won the game at 5 minutes in the fourth quarter if we could put together a drive, burn the clock, and maybe even kick a field goal. And our 1 minute drill was absolutely atrocious. I loved what I saw from the defense. I love the fact that we created turnovers. I love that when the turnovers presented themselves, we were able to recover the fumbles because the defense was being very aggressive early in the game. I love what I saw from Brandon Davis Swain. I love what I saw from Martavius French. I love the development that we're seeing from Quincy Wiggins. I think our defensive ends can certainly be better in keeping contained in the run game. I think we need more leadership from the linebacker spot to really get your team lined up and be confident in calling out what the offense is going to do because you're such a student of the game and you've done your field study. And we need to figure out the secondary, guys. This is not a Colorado secondary. Tackling is piss poor, too much rotating, and there's no leader back there to get those guys lined up and get those guys playing. And for the love of God, Coach Mathis and Coach Prime needs to get cornerback two sorted out, and they need to be confident in their technique. You cannot be bailing out the offense on third down by obvious interference calls, even when the ball is not even coming to you or coming to your guy. You just hold it for no reason. All right, guys. So those are my big takeaways. And then, of course, I love what I'm seeing from the special teams. I appreciate you guys spending your Sunday night, man. Hopefully, you got a bomb Labor Day lined up. And God is good, man. So if you're out there, no matter what you're going through, if it's good times, if it's bad times, whatever the situation might be, man, I pray for you. I pray that God blesses you. I pray that He brings you through whatever you're going. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this video with somebody. And until next time, peace.